He was my grandfather, and he has passed now. I am almost 40 years old. This year's my 40th birthday, and which feels like a big marker for me. I remembered, or I should say, started remembering a lot of the abuse and trafficking that happened around when I was 18 years old. I had just graduated from high school, and I went on this incredible trip to Europe. And on the way back, I was actually sexually assaulted on the airplane on the international flight coming back home by the man in the seat next to me who controlled the whole situation. It sounds bizarre to even be like, how can somebody be sexually assaulted on an airplane? Well, it's happened several times on public aircrafts. And the way that he manipulated and controlled the situation was very familiar to my body, I would say. And soon after that happened, and it became like actually an FBI case because it happened over international waters, like all this stuff. Nothing came of it. And really, it was after the point that nothing came of it. And I knew there was no justice. It's like my brain kind of fell out for the next year. And I just started having this cascade of what I would say flashbacks and memories and emotions and feelings that were triggered by this extremely traumatic event to me that had just occurred. So there was like a precursor of like, an older man, an older white man, controlling a situation and sexually harming me. So that was enough to cause that cascade to take place in the next year. And since I grew up in a very ultra religious community at home, a lot of the trauma was kind of passed on as being more spiritual in nature. My parents did take me to like psych wards, they took me to therapists, but they also tried to control those situations of being like, well, what you're saying, you know, isn't true, basically. Like, we confronted your grandfather, he said nothing happened. And I was in a psych ward at the time when they actually came into my room, and I'm sitting in the psych ward because I'm struggling at 18 with self-harm and suicidality. And they're telling me, well, we confronted him and he said he never touched you. And it caused me to completely dissociate for the rest of like a couple days. And so it was very complicated how it all unraveled in my head because of the context I was still in. I was still existing in a highly controlling, highly spiritual, religious community and family where be struggling mentally meant that I was probably possessed by demons, and that the things that happened to me actually, well, maybe they happened, maybe they didn't, but well, if we take care of these spiritual things, then you won't struggle anymore. And that's what led my parents did to put me into a home for troubled youth and young adults. I believe that they're true because of evidence in the sense of like just one's own mind doesn't generate things like that, stories like that, images, sensations. Like you can't recreate PTSD, basically. You can't generate multiple personalities. You can't create complex trauma responses. Like you would have to be a very, very good charlatan, or a very good actor to do that. And I don't know anyone really who would or would want to, or what the motivation would be. So that's one thing that therapists have had to work a lot with me on, of being like that. Why would somebody choose to create those things and create those stories? And secondly, I would say is the confirmation of my family system of their own disbelief of my experiences. And to me, that's evidence of telling because they also acknowledge that the individual who was the main person who abused and got me into these systems of pedophiles was someone they knew who had abused children. And they were very aware that he was a pedophile. They were very aware that he had abused other people in the family. And yet, flip-flopping between, well, abuse never happened in our family, but we know that these people accused him of XYZ. So when you have dynamics like that, it's confirmation in itself because the family dynamics are just so toxic and controlling and hiding like the truth. Something really important when it comes to people remembering traumatic things that happened to them, specifically to the people remembering those things, to be gentle with your body and mind through the process because it's very traumatic, it's very painful to remember, and to create support systems that are supportive, and to the family systems who are hearing them like from their family members like these things happening, believe them. We need to believe children. We need to believe the children who are inside of adults too, who experience these things.